key thing that you do in P6 that's not always that easy to communicate the impacts with the team, and I want to look at resources. So I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to use my P6. I'm going to look at my resourcing. I'm going to switch some logic, switch some durations, and see how TurboChart is going to help you with that kind of, again, what-ifing. Or not even what-ifing. Sometimes it just happens as you're executing, of course. So just to see the modeling that P6 and TurboChart and the benefits that you get with using the two, again, in a slightly different modeling scenario. So again, I'll go back into P6, and I have another project, as I mentioned, and it's a power transmission example. In this one, I'm going to go ahead and use a different layout that I've got that will highlight the, the resources that are required to deliver this project. So since this is a power transmission line in a remote location, it is going to be a camp project. So we do need some camps in place for the crews, the workers at site to have a place to live. Since in this example, we're not able to grab teams necessarily from local towns, local cities. So we're going to have camps that need to be in place first. So before I do any changes to this, I'm going to go ahead and bring it in to a new TurboChart working area. Okay, so I can certainly save this example, or I can go ahead and create a brand new one without saving. So you have both options. So I'll go ahead and not save that particular example. So let's go ahead and pull that second P6 project in, the power transmission example. And in doing that, let me go for a new one. File, close. And I'll go ahead and start a brand new example off this new power transmission project. So this works great when you're doing multi-projects, and we all live in the space where we're working more than one project at a time. So again, I can reuse those same libraries if you've got a corporate standard. Don't have to. If I've got a standard for my project, I can use that as well. So that's what I've got in this example. I've got different standard palette or template chart library. All those are synonymous. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that data in, and that's my example. So let's again get a bit of the lay of the land as to what we're looking at. So we've got a project that looks like it's 2 years, 1, 2, 3 years, 3 years of work scope. And we can see these purple lines, they are those camps that I was mentioning. And as you would expect with a remote project where you've got to have camps in place for the workers, we need to get those in place ahead of the work scope. Okay, so again, let's go ahead and get our image in there, and I've got an image for this project, so I can go ahead and grab that and pull it in. So this image is trying to show, of course, the topography of the work area, and you can see it's not flat, so there's obviously some mountains, some hills, and some remote area to handle on this project. So that's important in your consideration. The other thing that we certainly have here in Canada is we also have a lot of environmental and wildlife type of concerns and restrictions to when we're allowed to work. Okay, we have all sorts of them. So we have, because we have winter, we have freeze-thaw cycles that influence our roads, and we have things called road bans, which means you're not allowed to transport heavy, large equipment when the roads are kind of thawing out in the springtime. So these are important things to consider, and you need to have those in your model. Now, we would normally use calendars for that sort of thing, but being able to see it geographically and drop lines and things like that, really very helpful to communicate why there might be gaps in work. The other thing that we have a lot to consider is wildlife. Okay, so we've got so many of them, really. We've got things like elk and caribou and different migration for birds, endangered, different endangered or areas of concern for wildlife. So those two are really great visuals that you can add to this kind of a remote work site. In our example, transmission line. Okay, now, on that note, we've got some camps that we wanted to focus on. The other thing that we can do very easily is I did it a little earlier, I can zoom in and out. I can turn some of the sidebar area off so I can get more on my screen, so I can focus on what's going on. In this case, we've got 3 different crews needing to start all within a short time frame, so within 1 month of one another. Now that may be perfectly fine, but it may also be concern, right? This one also, maybe we have a pinch point that we need to consider. Okay, so these are the things that you can see much easier than you can in P6, even if you're really great at filtering, color coding. This really adds nuances that are very hard to pick up just looking at a Gantt chart. Okay, so let's take a look at the camps. So with a quick double click, my sidebar comes up, so very easy to get that on and off the screen. But let's take a look at the camps, because if I go back to my P6, you probably notice that I have what we don't want, which is an overload. And I've focused specifically on the camp crew, so the crew that are going to be putting the camps in place in those remote locations. And essentially I need to deal with this overload, don't I? I need to find a way to either resource level, or perhaps put some logic on this, or perhaps find a way to reduce the length of time some of those camps are taking to get in place. So in my example, I'm going to do a few things. So I'm going to put some logic. Okay, so I can draw it, which I am not good at. Let's go ahead and link that. Okay, so this may be one way that you're going to deal with getting the resources spread out. Now, the question really is this going to work? Will I still be delivering the camps when I need to? Okay, so I've made that change. That's fine. So camp 3, 5, 6. Now I can save this if I wish and do another data set, or I can also just ask it to refresh my data. These are the data points that I want to refresh, so that's good. And I can just go ahead and resync that up. Now what you see happens, of course, is as you would expect, camp 5, camp 6, because those are the ones I logicked up, which are these 2, they've moved down. Now that's still looking like I could conceivably have these move down a little more as well. Okay, so I could still explore smoothing out those resources for sure. Now, of course, that depends on how much in advance you need that camp in place, and of course where the crews are coming to work from. And there's obviously some sort of distance that makes sense and some distance that would not make any sense. So this is the thing that works really, really nice in these tools, is we can remodel and do it dynamically. Now, the other thing I may be able to do is to, of course, have maybe 2 teams put that camp together. So perhaps I can get my durations down. Okay, so again, I'll just do a quick fill down in here and what we're expecting to see. And I'll go ahead and do it on all of them just as an example, of course. See what that does. Now, of course, I am not solving my overload in this example, and you need to work on that, right? Just for the sake of time, I'll use that as my starting point. And I haven't resynced it, so I can go ahead and resync it. And again, as expected, you can dynamically see that we've rearranged not only the camps, but some of these tasks that must have some logic have also changed.